We're back!
Season 3 is here, y'all. Turning the page with your hosts,
Jer
and Gel.
We're not relationship experts, and this isn't professional life advice.
We're just two ordinary souls willing to share our extraordinary journey in the hope of inspiring and encouraging you.
Join us for Season 3 at Jer and Gel Podcast. Let's go!
Woo woo! So we will talk about how to embrace change during difficult times and how to navigate all of the life unexpected crossroads that are ahead.
Yeah.
That could happen.
You know, a lot of times, depending where our age is and, like, when we're navigating through life, a lot of times we don't plan for death. We don't plan to be prepared for our family not to take that burden or that you know, for one thing, they're dealing with loss already, but now they have to deal with taking care of everything and changing stuff over and taking on property, or, you know, if maybe it's vehicles or insurance or whatever.
There's a lot of details that come with losing a loved one. So we'll first start with the importance of planning for loss. I mean, a lot of people don't plan for a loss because you think, oh, I have time. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next year when we're less busy. But the reality is that we can't control what life throws at us, right? And so how do we plan ahead, or at least start the discussion of planning for loss with your loved ones?
So today we kind of want to go through some topics of what those stages are, or I guess each category. There's a couple categories that we've set aside, but we want to kind of go through each one and kind of talk about it. Go through the information. One thing is just to get you thinking about it, and you know, my wife has experienced this personally in her life, so this is going to be something that we'll be able to share and talk about, and I think it'll be beneficial. You know, a lot of times we think about these things. I think about it. My parents are getting older. They're not to the point where they're sick or having a bunch of issues, but you never know how long life lasts, or how long, you know, anything
Tomorrow
can happen,
is not
right?
promised.
Even with you and I, like,
No matter how old you are,
act like we're going to be around forever, so we even need to start planning and doing some stuff, which we kind of have in some areas, but not everything.
We've had discussions, but we haven't actually executed our plans.
Yeah.
I think I'm more interested in it, or more motivated to do so, than you are.
Yeah, we haven't got to it, but we need to. That is something that we do need to do, because once you share your experience and kind of the difficulties of it, I think that'll bring everything in together as why it's so important. So
the emotional impact of losing a loved one without preparation, that is something that I experienced, because I did lose my second husband to COVID December 2020. And it was definitely unexpected. We were together for 3.5 years, married for 1 year and 3 months, and it just came out of nowhere. And we were newlyweds, so we didn't have anything planned out. We didn't talk about, oh, what if one of us dies, or what do we do, you know, or how would you like your end of life to be? You know, we just didn't have these discussions, like, do you want to be cremated, do you want to be buried? Like, I had no idea. So, you know, as his wife, I had to make decisions, right? It was a huge emotional impact. One, I'm already an emotional person, and two, it was all of my emotions, but also having to deal with making decisions, right? Because he was hospitalized and for 21 days, and 19 of the 21 days, he couldn't make his own decisions because he was intubated. So I, had to check in every day. I had to make choices. I I don't know. It really took a toll, and especially since it was so new for me, like this marriage, and I didn't know how to navigate everything, but I did the best I could. I prayed every day, and I sought counsel from people, counselors at church that I trusted. I would call them. You know, Chris had a friend that was a nurse, and he trusted her, and I would talk to her every day, every single day. You know, and she's like, if you're feeling this, you need to go in. And he was feeling out of breath and short of breath, so we went in. We didn't know it was going to take that long. Like, I thought it was going to be more like of an in and out, and I don't know. So the emotional impact, and without preparation, I think it would have been, in my opinion, a little bit easier to manage if we were prepared, if we had a plan in place, if I knew exactly what his wishes were. You know, I think that would have at least given me a little bit more peace of mind. Like, oh my gosh, I did everything he wanted. I did everything that we discussed. Yeah, I would be heartbroken, still sad, still emotional, but at least it would be a little easier, in my opinion.
You just wouldn't be bearing so much, as far as you were already dealing with loss. You were already dealing with, you know, the impact of it, because there wasn't really any like preparation for it. It was just, it just came, and then after, now you're responsible for everything that comes up and happens. You know, you had some family that was around and stuff, but you still had to be the one that to go and do all this stuff, and that's a lot to carry. It's hard when you're already dealing with loss, and now
well, I think the whole planning part, if there was a plan, having a plan and knowing that you fulfilled that plan for your loved one, it does make you have a more peaceful transition. I do believe that. I don't believe that my transition into widowhood was that peaceful. And there's a lot of questions, and I still sometimes question things, but I've learned that everything happens for a reason, and I can't continue to live my life in the past. One, that's not healthy, and two, Chris wouldn't have wanted me to do that. So I think discussing end of life wishes is huge, because it's not something that we did. But I knew that he would want to be here with us if he was 100% himself, right? Like, who would want to come back not 100% themselves mentally or physically? That's just the way he was. But I did call. I wasn't sure about like being cremated or being buried, because we never discussed that. So I called his son, and I was like, well, did you guys ever know or discuss what his wishes were? Because we never discussed this. And he said, whatever's cheapest, because my dad was cheap, which is so true. And I kind of chuckled. I was like, you're right. He would be like, don't be spending money on flowers for me. Like, no, don't, I don't need that. I'm not even there to see them. So, you know, so the cheapest route was cremation. Not being buried. I think that's more expensive.
Yeah.
So we went that route, and you know, it's all these decisions, like who's going to write the eulogy and who's going to make the slideshow, and planning the whole service. Like, what do you even want for your service? What songs do you want to be played? You know, and I feel like that part, the funeral service, is really more for your loved ones who are still here grieving. It's not once you're dead, you don't care. It's like, do whatever is going to make you feel better. Like, going through this whole experience for me, I just having to go through all that planning, because I really didn't get to grieve until after the funeral was over. I was like, I got to get this done. I had a list. I had to plan this. I had to get the slideshow done, and all the stuff that goes into planning it. I didn't get to actually breathe and grieve till after it was all finished. And so for me, I don't want my family to be burdened with that. So me being the planner that I am, already know what I want at my service, what colors, what flowers, what food, what songs, basically everything. They're in my mind right now. They're not written down, but I know we've discussed it. Like, I've shared with you, like, hey, I don't want nobody to wear black. I want everybody to wear bright neon colors, celebrate life. Like, that's what I want, right? But I do plan on having like a end of life, like binder or book, or just maybe somewhere on the cloud where somebody can access it and be like, okay, these were her wishes, and that would ease the burden of my family, not having to make decisions while they're mentally processing and grieving at the same time. I think would help.
Yeah. You know, I know we've talked a little bit about it, and you've even asked me, and I'm in that same category where I'm like, I don't care. I don't put me in a box and throw me in the grave or whatever, because I'm not going to be here. So I'm like, as long as I don't feel it, I'm
You
cool.
really don't care?
No, I don't.
I would prefer not to be
like you
buried
said-
6 feet underground. No thanks. Claustrophobic, first of all, closer to hell. You want
Wow.
worms all over my grave? No, thank you. I don't like bugs, first of
Yeah.
all. Like,
I don't mind cremation. Cremation's a good thing. I mean, it's quick.
I want me cremated.
Either way, your body is gone.
I know.
You know,
I know.
so it doesn't really matter.
It
As
does.
far as, and like you said earlier, a lot of times the services is what it is for family to come together for that grievance time, for you
Yeah.
know, to mourn that loss in a sense. But like you said too, a lot of times the people that are closest to the person that is lost, sometimes they don't experience that grievance for a while.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they're busy with all the day-to-day things. They're going to the bank. They're going to the title company. They're going to the
Yeah.
insurance company. You know, this
even
could be weeks out.
Even after the funeral, like, it's okay, what do we do with the house? What do we do with the car? What do we do with this? Like, I got to close his bank account that I'm not on, or, you know,
And then you have to go get
gotta
paperwork
call his
because
boss.
you weren't on the account, and
got to
you got to
return.
prove that.
I had to return his company vehicle, his company computer, his company phone. You know, all these things that happen after someone leaves us here on earth is, you got to follow through with all the rest of the stuff. You got to file a death certificate. You got to do all this paperwork. And for me, in my planning mode, I was like, I got to make sure I include his parents. I got to make sure I include his siblings and his kids. And I want them to feel included. I want them to be part of the planning, you know, and they were, you know, as hard as it was. But I do feel like a lot of it fell on me as his wife to get these things done.
Yeah.
You know, and people would come to me for questions like, well, what are we going to do with this? Or we should probably do this. And like, I wrote the eulogy myself, and then I sent it to his sister. I was like, can you just like proofread it, look over it, change it, make it better? I don't know. Like, I've never written a eulogy before. She made it so much better. It was so much more eloquent than what I had. And I even left myself out in the eulogy because I was so worried thinking about everyone else except for me. And that's just how I am. I always put everyone else first. And so, you know, in the part of the eulogy where it says like, the name of the person is survived by spouse, kids, and the names I did not put myself down. And I was just like, crap, you're right. I think it was Chris's daughter-in-law that was mentioned to me, you forgot yourself, Jelly. I was like, oh my gosh. And that's because my mind wasn't all there. So I did have, you know, people around me that were helpful, and, you know, his son picked the songs. I did the slideshow, and it was nice. I ordered flowers. By the way, funeral flowers are very expensive. You're better off going to Whole Foods and creating your own bouquet, or even Sprouts or Trader Joe's, buying your own flowers, creating your own bouquet. Obviously, at that time, you're not thinking, you're grieving.
Yeah.
You don't think about these things. Also, urns. Don't ever buy those urns
Amazon.
from the actual funeral home. They're
Do you know you can even
expensive.
buy coffins
Yes.
from Amazon?
Actually, I did not know that. No.
Yeah, I've looked at it.
But the urns on Amazon are so much cheaper. Or
And same thing.
shoot, freaking buy a cookie jar. Honestly, the lid. I am not. You think I'm joking?
I might go to the cookie jar.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Because you love cookies so much, I actually thought I would just put you
me in a cookie
I
jar.
would put you in a cookie jar. Your ashes would be in a bag, nicely tight and in
baby.
there, and nobody can touch that.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Add some milk.
Oh my gosh. Joking aside, yes, it's just so much cheaper, but you don't think about these things. And I didn't do my research as far as like choosing, like I just went to the funeral home that everybody knows, right? French Brothers. I think like everybody knows that one. But there's so many options, and I actually wouldn't go with them anymore. Like I would actually go with Direct Funeral Services, because they are local. They are the least expensive in town. I did kind of research like after the fact, but
Crazy.
But just so you guys know, like these planning, all this planning needs to be discussed between your loved ones, you know, between your husband and wife, between your parents, you know, as your parents get older. You know, I just think it's important. It causes less stress and burden on your loved ones who are still here, who need to grieve you, but can't because they have all these decisions that need to be made.
Yeah. That's a discussion I need to have with my parents here soon, and have, you know, plans and stuff. And there's some things that I found out too, that, you know, even like for my parents, they own property, they have a home, they have a business that property sits on. A lot of times people will just leave that over in a will. So like if you have children and you have a home or land and stuff that you own, a lot of times people will just leave that over and say, oh, well, in my will, I'm leaving it to them. But that also leaves a burden on the people that are receiving that too, because taxes. So now if your land is worth like $500,000 or $100,000, then now you're responsible or liable for $30,000-$40,000 of taxes that you have to provide to the government.
They have, whoever you leave your property to, they gotta pay for the taxes.
So there's certain things where you can write like a will and trust, or you can do different things to where you don't have those taxes that come up front, and it's laid out a lot easier and smoother, and those are things that we need to do. But how do you get to that point? How do you communicate those wishes? How do you communicate that?
Well, I mean, like before we start there, for the will, like, cause like my late husband did not have a will, did not have life insurance, didn't have anything like that in place. So everything has to go through probate court when you don't have a will. But even if you have a will, it still goes through probate court. The only time that your assets do not go through probate court is if it's in a trust. That's it. So the best option is to put everything that you won't own or everything you want to pass on in a trust. So just so you know, which I haven't done that. We haven't done that, but I feel like we should eventually, you know.
Well, and there's don't you have something that's like a step by step that kind of leads you to doing that, and you're able to write everything out and put everything to where you situate it, put it in.
So you can actually make just another tip.
That's good. Good to know.
When you create a will, because you have to have a will first and then you put it in a trust, I think you actually do need a lawyer or an attorney or something for the trust. I don't know how the trust works. I haven't gotten that deep in my research, but as far as the will goes, lawyers or attorneys, whatever, law offices, whatever, they do charge a lot for a will. Anywhere from like $500 to $2,000. Like it just depends on what kind of will you need or how much stuff you need on that will. But I went to mamabearlegalforms.com and loved it, and I got a will through there. I think I only paid like $170 with taxes and everything. And you can edit it up to 6 months, and then of course if you need to update it, which wills should be updated, by the way, as life changes. And I found that the most economical way to do it, and also it's laid out and easy. You just fill out all the blanks, and then at the end they give you the whole document, and if you don't like it, you can go and edit it. It's awesome. I loved it so much. And now that we're married, I got to redo it because that was before you. But anyway, so how do you...
And I have to get one.
You do. Actually, when you're married, you can have a joint one.
Oh, really?
Yes. But I think that there should still be one separate as well. But anyway, so communicating in life wishes, how do you do that with your loved ones?
Well, our tip here says encouraging open conversation with loved ones about their end of life preferences, which we kind of talked a little bit about. But talking to the people that are in your life, your husband, your wife, your children, your parents, and saying, when you pass or you die, what do you expect? Like, what would you want? Maybe they're going to say, I don't care. I don't know. I'm not going to be here like me. I don't care. But a lot of times...
You don't care, but I feel like you care a little bit.
I really don't.
Great. I
wouldn't want people to spend money on flowers. I would rather say...
Give
you gift cards to Amazon. And
okay. What about Bruce? Do you care about Bruce? Because I'm just going to get rid of him.
So that stuff's different. That's
what I thought.
You're going to have... Like, the materialistic stuff that you have... I think there should be a plan for that because of the fact that there is, like, a lot of my stuff is in my name. Mm-hmm. So if it's not in your name, then it makes it a lot more difficult for you to get those things. A bank account, like now our bank accounts are joined, so that would never be an issue.
Except
You'd still
for your
be able
personal
to.
bank account.
No, you're on the same thing. You have access to all of that. Every time I get a check, believe me, y'all, she has access to it. I get a text message like first thing in the morning. I've transferred some money around, so she has access to it.
Okay, you got a point.
But there's certain things like that, like sometimes you have vehicles or you have a home or like when my parents pass, we're going to have their property. We're going to have to decide what to do to that property. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to rent it? Are we going to do something to invest with that and have something to where we get a return off of it? But then if I pass away, then that's something that's,
So you're saying that there should be a plan for assets and what you own and personal things, but
the service I don't care about.
You don't really care about your end of life, like
I don't care about service, the songs, all that stuff, because I know you would take care of that and that would be completely fine. And everyone that's coming in for that, it's for the. It's kind of like when you have a wedding and a honeymoon. When you get married, you can have this big blown out wedding and you can do all kinds of stuff and invite everyone to come and eat. You're paying the bill for your event to make everyone come and eat, to feed them.
Yes.
Or you can spend that money on a vacation and go somewhere really nice. That's kind of like the way I see it. I can spend money on a funeral or...
I get that, but your family's going to be grieving and making all these choices.
No, I'll have videos telling them, don't cry. I'm not even here. I feel nothing.
You're going to make videos.
I'm going to make it right now. You know what? If you're watching this video, I'm no longer here. This might be 30 years from now, 50 years from now. And you know what? I'm in a good place. I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay,
my life is good.
Babe, hold on a second. Just back up, because there's more to end of life wishes than just, am I gonna get cremated or funeral decisions. No, there's more to end of life. Like, what if you're hospitalized? Do you want me to pull the plug or do you not?
I don't
like how long do you want me to leave you connected to?
If my life is right with Jesus and I'm dying and I'm going down that route where he may not come back from this at all, I'd say let it go.
Okay, well, who determines if your life is right with Jesus?
I'd play rock, scissors, papers and say, who's going to pull it? You, Christian, Elijah?
That's not funny.
No, there are things that are very serious about it. Like the fact, those things when you are in the hospital. I would not, I haven't really thought about it, but I would not want to be in a place like that dying or suffering. I do not want to die in a place like that. I would rather say, let me come home, put me in the bed.
Yeah.
Let me do my thing there, and then
Actually,
Call a tow truck.
I have thought about it quite a bit after Chris, and I don't want to die in a hospital. I don't.
The
During
way he passed was horrible
well during
and
COVID,
miserable because the hospitals and people were on this big thing of we can't allow anybody
yeah,
in or only one person.
yeah,
And to be in that situation, I remember being in the hospital when he was in the hospital. I was there for a few days and I couldn't have visitors. I couldn't have anything. I had my phone and thank God I was able to communicate with people. But I can only imagine being in that situation when you're literally fighting for your life and you can't have people around you that you love encouraging you and being
yeah.
there for you, and you had to fight to get people in there to be able
Well,
to see him
yeah,
at last,
I
you
wasn't
know?
able to visit him. The first 2 days, he was lucid and he wasn't intubated yet, so he had his phone and we could FaceTime. And the night before he was intubated, we talked through FaceTime for like a whole hour before it was time. We were tired and time to go to bed. And the FaceTime thing is nice, but I wanted to physically
It's not
be
the
there.
same,
It's
yeah.
not the same. And as a patient, having visitors is part of your healing too. Like,
Yeah.
I think not having visitors is a detriment to your health, you know? And I even remember, he had texted me, or it was a phone call. I can't remember if it was a text or phone call, but he had said, I think they're letting visitors in now because I just saw a woman and a little girl with their dog. Yeah, I know. I don't. I think he was hallucinating, but he he was hallucinating what, like, visitors, because he wanted visitors, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I even asked the nurse about that, and she was like, no, absolutely not. We have had no visitors. I was like, huh. So he was seeing things. Okay. And then the next day he was intubated, and thankfully, because someone at church that we know made a call to Loveless and was able to get us in as visitors. One visitor per day. Couldn't leave the room. If you left, then you were done visiting for the day. Like, so, man, when we first got that call that we could go, I was like, I'm going. I hadn't even eaten. I had just showered, but I hadn't eaten. So I just picked up and left. And I think I ended up going like 7 o'clock at night or something like that. And I ended up staying for as long as I could hold my bladder. And because there's no restrooms there, you can't use the restrooms in there. And so I ended up staying till like 9 in the morning. I basically did a 14-hour shift without using the restroom. And I was like, okay, I definitely need sleep. And then the next day, his sister went, and then his son would go, and then we kind of just rotated, me and his son. And it was nice to at least have the option for one of us to be there. But I think because we weren't there for like the first week, it was awful. The waiting, the sitting and waiting at the phone for an update. And then the nurses get so busy with all their patients that they don't call and update you. So you have to call and get an update. And I even provided an iPad in the room so that they could FaceTime me and I could see him. And yeah. So once we were able to go in, it was a lot better, I think. But still, it's just not a good experience.
Yeah.
So that's the end of life wishes that I'm talking about. Like, if you were to be in a hospital, like, what would you want? Because that's also something that me and Chris never discussed. Like, well, what if I get intubated? What should we do? How long do we go for? Like, do you even want to be intubated? Like, stuff like that.
No,
You
I
have to
think
think about
those
that.
those are very important things to discuss and have planned out, just because it's going to take off that burden off of you trying to have to make all those decisions. If it's already written out, then it's a lot easier for you just to check those off and say, okay, this is what he wants, this is what he wants,
Yeah.
And it makes it easier from you feeling guilty that you had to pull the plug, or that you had to make a decision like this, or you had to do something when you're not completely sure about it. So I think that's important. So have the communication, have that talk, have that discussion to bring that to the forefront.
You mentioned earlier that you need to have this discussion with your parents. How do you plan on bringing it up?
By saying, hey, I've talked to them a little bit about it already, and I know they do have some things set up. I know they've made changes, and they've gone to the bank, and they've put me on as like a person that can take care of the account or do whatever. Most of the property they've written, they've written stuff where I'm on the property and stuff like that, and for the business and stuff. But those are the things that we've kind of already had. But there's more to it, as far as if we're talking about like where they want to be buried, do they want to be cremated, do they want to, where they want the service to be, all that stuff. I think I have an idea about it, but I'm not clear on it. So that shows that I need to really have that discussion. The thing that you keep bringing up is if they're in the hospital, if something's wrong with them, and they are to the point to where, they can't make decisions on their own, what decisions should I be making? 'Cause I don't have brothers or sisters or other people that can be part of it, so that responsibility falls on me. Again, like I think I know, but it's assumption. It's not written. It's not something that we've discussed and actually made an agreement on. So it's something that I plan on doing and need to do here soon. I keep putting it off, but a lot of times that's where you have that situation where you're surprised by it, and you're like, I don't want to do it, and I'm the type of person that I will not want to take care of that stuff. If I have to go to the banks, if I have to go to courthouses, I'm going to be like, you know what, I don't want to do it. Especially when you're grieving.
He does not like to do paperwork. He doesn't like to call into call centers.
Nope.
I mean, I have never seen him so frustrated ever till he had to call his credit card company.
Yeah, I got an argument with a guy, and I told him he was miserable at doing his job.
Oh my gosh. So I definitely do not see you handling things.
No, but if you have things planned out and you're on those things, like if your name is on there, hey, my name is Jeremy Tafoya, my father passed away, my mother passed away, whatever, then they're like, oh, hello, Mr. Tafoya, how are you doing? So you're part of it.
A lot of things. Like whenever I had to call, our homeowner's insurance, our car insurance, and transfer things into my name that were only in his name, it's like, okay, well, do you have a death certificate? Yes. Do you have the letter of his personal representative? Yes, because I was his personal representative, right? When there is nothing in place, you actually have to file a personal representative form and appoint someone. If they don't have somebody as an appointed personal representative, you got to appoint one. So I had to fill all that out. I mean, it's a lot of paperwork that a lot of people don't know has to happen.
But I think if you have that prepared and you have that file, you have that folder, you know where it's at. And then when you do receive the death certificate, that goes in that file. That everything that you get goes in that file. And when you're ready to go to somewhere, you've got everything on hand to be able to do it. The other thing that I think of that a lot of people have to deal with is a lot of times family. Whenever a family goes through loss, a lot of times that's when family is not in the best part, and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everyone's fighting and arguing, and materialistic things become it's horrible. It could be. I've never experienced it. I never believe I will, because I'm the only child. But
people come out and like, oh, well, what do I get? What do I get? And I actually didn't have to experience that, which is great. I mean, Chris's family is great. They're great people. And there wasn't even much, really anything to fight over, We just had the house, and he had his car. His car was already his son's, and the house we bought together. And it was in his name, but it was a house that we both chose together 4 days before we got married, actually. We closed on it. So, there wasn't really much, like just his personal belongings, which I kept what I wanted, and I gave the rest to his parents, and that was that. I mean, it wasn't really that hard as far as personal items and that kind of stuff goes. I mean, there was some other hard aspects, which we'll touch on a different episode, because this episode is not about that. But other hard emotional aspects is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, I think that the whole managing financial affairs is definitely something that needs to be discussed as well. Not just your end of life wishes, but how do you want things to go down with your bank, with your house, with your car, or,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Well, those are important things to discuss. So we've communicating end of life wishes, managing financial affairs,
Yeah.
funeral and burial
Understanding the
arrangements. We kinda talked
importance
about that.
of planning for loss, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we kind of talked a little bit about funeral and burial arrangements as well. They're gonna ask you lots of questions, like, do you want the body to be embalmed or not? Like, if you're gonna do cremation, you don't need to pay for embalming, and then if you're gonna do the burial, then yes, you want to preserve, especially if you're gonna have a viewing.
Do you have to do that?
The embalming?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have to.
No. I wouldn't want it.
No?
No. It involves needles and all kinds of stuff.
Not.
Yeah.
I don't know what
They
it
stick
involves.
a big old needle in you and pump all this fluid in you.
Oh, you're gonna feel it?
No, I just don't want it.
So you do care. Wow.
Ah.
Okay. Yeah,
Anyways.
I think we're going to have a further discussion, because we've discussed these things like more at surface level. We haven't gone deep down as to like, hey, this is the plan.
Yeah.
But
yeah. The last topic I know that's always a toss up in the air, because of the fact that people deal with grief in a different way. So what I'm talking about is coping with grief and loss.
Yeah.
Myself, I haven't had a whole lot of people that have been like really close to me that I've lost, and I could probably count them on like one hand. So my parents are still alive, and I haven't dealt with that. Thank God that hasn't happened. I hope it doesn't happen for another 20 years or more. But when that comes to be, how do you prepare for that? How do you cope with grief and loss? I think I don't in a way I don't really think you can be prepared for it. But I think if you, in your mind and in your beliefs, if you are at peace with things, it makes the grief and loss a little bit easier. Am I right on that?
Yeah,
Or is that not
I will
true?
say.
Because I'm just guessing. I don't even know.
So I have experienced loss 4 times in my life. My first time was my Aunt Yvonne, who died tragically when I think she was 40, and I was 15. And we were really close. She was my favorite aunt. Every time I was in Alamogordo, we'd spend a lot of time together. So that was my first experience with loss. That was the first time I saw a dead body in a coffin. And it didn't even look like her, because she was hit by a train. And so it really messed up her whole face, but they tried to put her back together as best as they could. So, I was 15. That was a different type of loss. I didn't know how to process that, I'm sure. Then my grandpa passed when I was 19, I would say. And second body I seen in a coffin. And, that one I think was a little bit easier to process, just because, he was already of old age. He lived a great life. I always think that it's still hard, because you're going to miss them. And if you don't want to see your loved ones dead, but at least, I knew that he loved Jesus. He was a believer. I know he's in heaven, and I'm going to see him again. And he lived a great life. And so with my aunt, it was different, because she was still young. She was 40. She left 3 kids. She still had a lot of life to live. But also a really amazing woman of God that I got to know. And then my third loss was Chris, my late husband. And my fourth loss was after him, which is my grandma on my dad's side, both my grandpa on my dad's side and my grandma. So my grandma passed after. She was also, I think, late 60s, maybe early 70s. I really can't remember, because I'm not really good with ages, but excuse me. But I think out of all the losses that I experienced, Chris was definitely the hardest. And it was because he was my husband. He was the person I was closest to, because when you're husband and wife, you do become one flesh, right? And so that is the hardest loss I had ever had to endure. You see them every single day. You go to bed with them every single night. You talk to them every day. I mean, you rely on this person every single day, and then one day they're just gone. And so I think that it is important to actually cope and deal with your grief and loss. One of the things that I had mentioned earlier was that I didn't get to really grieve until after the funeral, right? Like, I did the night that he passed. I came home, and I came home by myself. I had nobody to come home with me. I think my mom tried to come comfort me and be here. I didn't want her here. I didn't want anybody, really. I didn't want anybody to come comfort me. I just wanted to be alone and cry in my bed alone. And it was Chris's cousin who actually called me as I was driving home from the hospital, left me a voicemail. And I still have the voicemail on my phone to this day, and I listen to it sometimes. I have a lot of voicemails I still listen to. And then I did end up calling her when I got home. And that was comforting, because she has also gone through loss herself, losing her son, which is a whole different type of grief, I think. I do think that grief is different for the types of relationships that we lose, like grief of losing a husband or losing a child or losing a parent. You can't compare them. Yes, there's similarities, but the grief is definitely different depending on the relationship. Yeah. And I think it's also important to find people that you can talk to and not just bottle it all up. So like, I did go to counseling every month, probably like once a week. And then I brought it down to like once a month until I felt better, I guess. I don't know.
You did that for quite a while.
I did it for quite a while, yeah. And then I also started working out and using that as an outlet.
Yeah.
Just to all that pent up energy and pent up like emotion. Like, I started working out, and I would work out hard, and I'd be so pissed off working out. I was like, ugh, like I'd punching bags, or I'll just do whatever the workout was. I would throw all of my anger into that workout, and that seemed to have helped me. I never actually went to like one of the grieving and loss classes that they offer at church. I got invited to them. I never actually went. I don't know why. I think it's because the one-on-one counseling was helping me, and I really didn't feel like being around a bunch of criers. Honestly, because I just, when one cries, then everybody starts crying. I don't know. I just, no. But I will tell you that part of grieving, there's different stages. You get angry, right? I didn't pray for like a couple months, yelled at God, and then I went through anxiety. Like, I would be driving, and this is so dangerous, but I'd be driving, and all of a sudden, uncontrollable tears and crying out of my eyes while I'm driving, and I was like having a hard time breathing, and I couldn't see the road, but I kept driving, and this happened at least 3 or 4 times, and I couldn't control it. I just couldn't stop it. And as months went by, that kind of anxiety stopped coming up, which was great. But I'd get pissed off over everything. Like, I never had to do the backyard, and then I had to do the backyard and pick up the leaves and do all this stuff, and then I'd be mad at Chris, and I'd be yelling at him, and I'd be like, you should be here, you should be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this. Stuff like that. I'd have conversations with myself, conversations with Chris, conversations with God, and it's just, there's a lot that goes into how you cope and deal with grief and loss, and there's no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. And I think a lot of people don't get that. For me, after 2 months, I could not stand looking at his clothes in my closet anymore, because it was depressing. It was sad. I kept going in the closet, crying into his clothes and smelling them. I didn't want to do that anymore. I Carter was still here, my son, I still had purpose, and I still had something to live for, no matter how sad I was. So I knew that I had to do something. So I just, out of sight, out of mind, and moved it into a different room in the house, and stuff like that. It's your timing, and you do what works for you in your timing. And that is what I learned. And it doesn't matter what other people think, what other people will say, or their opinions. It doesn't matter, because they are not living your life. You have to live your life. You have to wake up every day and live and see all the things. You got to see pictures on the wall. You got to, all this stuff. And so you have to do whatever is going to help you grieve better. And that's what I did. Even though I was still a little bit worried, like, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? It was in the back of my mind. But at the end of the day, I have to take care of my mental health and my physical health. And I have to also be an example to my son at the same time, which I didn't make the best choices either, because, part of my grieving was also drinking, right? I did go through a little phase where I did overdrink, and it's because I wanted to let all my emotion of it, but I got past it, and I went to counseling still, and I still served in church, even though I didn't feel like serving God. I'm like, okay, here I am. I'm serving. Don't want to, but I'm here. And I am so grateful that I did, because it got me through it. So anyways, long answer, but
I think putting people around you that you can trust and that are going to speak into your life and help you navigate through that is important.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, everybody copes in their own way. There's some people that will hold on to everything and keep rooms the way they were and do all this stuff. And some people aren't like that.
They want to keep everything as is, like they never left, and that's okay. I'm just not one of those people.
However's going to help you get through it, So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few voicemails from him I still listen to every year. There's, certain things I still do because of him. There's
and
little
I think
quirks.
That's important, because you can still honor the life of someone that's no longer here by celebrating their life through things that they've done or things that you've done with them.
Yes.
I know there's a recipe that you like that he used to like. Those things are ways to keep memories, because in a sense you're never gonna forget that person in your life. You're never gonna forget what they did, what they brought, who they were. But there's things that you can celebrate that.
Yeah.
And don't ever feel bad about celebrating those times, because those are important. There's times that are cherished and are very important to you, and keep those.
I have 3 recipes that I will always cook now. So it's chicken salad, chicken noodle soup, and for Thanksgiving it's the sweet potato souffle. Those are the 3, and I will forever have them. There's just little things. I always put pepper in my ketchup now, because he taught me that, or just little things that I will, when I do them, it reminds me of him. And sometimes I'll look up and see, that's
see what I did.
Yeah, and
awesome.
And it's just because somebody decides to move forward with their life or get rid of their clothes sooner than people expect or stuff like that, it doesn't mean that you don't love them, or you didn't love them enough, or that you're not going to miss them, or that you still don't think about them or miss them, because that is absolutely completely wrong, because I think about him more often than not. And I actually am really appreciative to have someone by my side that understands that, and that allows me to bring him up if I want to, or share some memory that I had of him, right?
Yeah.
That's because sometimes I'll have a memory randomly in the kitchen or something. I'm like, oh, I remember when he used this and we got in a fight, or this I didn't like, or I think the most recent one was that potato peeler that he loves so much. I was like, I do not love this, but it was rusted, and he still thought it was the best potato peeler. But stuff like that, and it's okay. And so I'm just really grateful for you that you allow me to express myself and just be me and share that with you.
Yeah, we've heard some stories of other um, people that have had loss of a husband, and now there's a new person in that person's life, and they don't so much like the fact that they bring up their spouse that's no longer there, their late husband and
Like
stuff.
they get jealous
and
almost.
I don't think that should ever be. I don't think that should ever be something that you burden someone with, because that's not something that you chose. Neither of you chose. It's not something
Right.
that was ever planned. It was nothing that was ever like prepared for. But you still have to live, like you said, you still have to live your life. You still have to move on. You had your son. You've got, work. You still got bills. You got to provide. You got to do
Yeah.
all this stuff. And, there is future. There is hope for new beginnings. And we're testimony of that. But, I would never want to, I guess, how would you say, like compress or make you feel like you can't bring that up, because I knew Chris. He was a wonderful man. He was amazing. He was a friend of mine. And, there's things that I still miss of not being able to, his sarcasm and certain things that we used to text and have stuff like that, banter with back and forth with each other. If people would ever read our text messages, they're probably like, you guys don't like each other much, do you? But actually we did,
Yeah.
And I think honoring him in every way, and I always tell my wife this as well, that sometimes she's like, oh, I don't like, there's still a lot of memories that happen within the house, and there's some things that she wants to change sometimes, and in my mind I'm always thinking, well, babe, that's not a bad thing, like if it brings up memories. But there's different things, and I'm not experiencing that. She experiences things in a different way. So there's ways that you experience things in life, and there's memories that you have, and you walk around a corner, you remember seeing a person sitting there, and sometimes it could be a good experience, or maybe it was a bad experience. So so changing things around the house and home and stuff. But I think anytime that thought or memory comes up with that person, it should be celebrated.
Yeah.
Because his life was worthy of celebrating.
Yes.
Definitely.
I agree. Yeah.
Good.
So.
Well, babe, conclusion out of this thing, and then we'll go to our...
Well, we hope that this episode today on how to navigate loss, how to prepare for the unexpected helps. I hope that some of our insights and our experiences that we have shared will basically bring to light, or maybe bring up some topics that you want to discuss with your loved ones, right? We hope that you have these open conversations with them as far as planning for the unexpected, because we just never know, because tomorrow is not promised. So if you have any comments, please let us know. If you like this episode, share it. If you have an opinion, share that too. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, if this has hit home, and maybe there's people in your life that that can benefit from this, share this with them. Let them know. Hope is something that just doesn't come from nothing. A lot of times we have to hear other people's experiences. We have to hear other people's opinions on things to apply it to our lives, and there's certain things that we can do to make things better. So if there's someone out there that that can benefit from it, share it, let them see it. We hope that it's brought some great, discussion, some valuable content to you guys, and that you guys can use this. And one of the other things that I always want to start to share a little bit is, we're not professionals in any of this. This isn't something where we're trying to counsel you or be your therapist or anything. But we truly feel that our experiences and what we've gone through in life, just as you've had stuff that's gone through you in your life, you can benefit from others. We heal from stories. We grow from stories. We grow from what other people go through. So we want to just encourage you with the things that we've gone through and see a different view. A lot of times we look at our optimistic view, or we see the way we view things, and we just want to share that with you guys to be able to encourage you. And that's the whole purpose of this, is to encourage you, inspire you, and keep you moving forward.
Well,
So
we appreciate your support, and we look forward to bringing you more valuable content in future episodes. This is Turning the Page with
Jer,
and Gel.
thanks guys. Have a good day.
Bye.